Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. I am back for another live stream, and I am going to be doing it with a friend, which is cool. You wouldn't know that because you can't see him currently, but if you listen very carefully, you can hear him in the background because there's a lot of there's some noise coming through on his channel, which is I'm going to tease him about because we're going to be talking about audio and stuff all for this stream. So yeah, Jason Sadites, how you going? How's it going, bud?
Very well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, mate, pleasure's all mine. We hooked up after you were kind enough to make a video of your 5 favorite YouTubers, and you were kind enough to put me in there, and I was like, "Oh, that's really kind of you. Thank you so much."
Oh, that was my pleasure, man.
Let's hook up. So
that was a fun video to do, and I tried to pick the ones that aren't these gigantic channels that everybody's already all over and the household name sort of thing. Not that you aren't. You are very much out there. But yeah, I do. I really, really enjoy what you do.
Yeah, I'm not quite the household name level yet. And it's too late in the day now, isn't it? It's 2021. The YouTube boom is long gone. We were talking about it just before the stream started. This idea of like the boom essentially came because people would find things that they liked and then share them with other people. They don't do that now. They find things they like and they keep them to themselves. So just nature of the beast. So we're going to talk about a fair few things today. We're going to head down the route of digital versus analog gear. But before we go down there, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself for those that are unfamiliar with you? And if you are unfamiliar with Jason's work, I have got a link in the description to his YouTube channel. Go and check him out. Give him a wee sub. It helps us YouTubers out. So, oh God, I just described myself as a YouTuber. Sorry, carry on.
We won't hold it against you. I'm indie guitar player, I guess I could call myself, who's basically spent the last 30 odd years as a professional musician. I spent the largest portion of the beginning of that teaching guitar to multiple students. Used to have 75, 80 students a week, and consistently did that for many years, 6 days a week. I'd take a couple months of downtime in the summer to kind of keep my sanity and get back at it. And I mean, I enjoyed it thoroughly at times, and at other times, as any guitar teacher knows, it can be the most rewarding, wonderful profession, and it could also be the most frustrating, awful thing you can do, all depending on, I guess that's pretty much like any profession, isn't it? Depending on who you're dealing with at the time.
Yeah,
but anyway,
depends on the students.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, but I moved on from that after, many years, I think 25 years of that. And also in the meantime, I ran a studio, produced albums for a lot of folks, a lot of the local area bands where I was living at the time, and did session work for people, all the normal things that all of us musicians try to do to make ends meet and put some food on the table. When I got out of that, I kind of moved away from that and started getting more into the session work. And the whole YouTube thing, I joined in 2008, and I never really took it seriously. I just kind of put the odd video up here and there. Really never thought much about it. But what happened is when I started working more with the Line 6, well, actually, I wasn't really working with the Line 6. I started just doing a lot of cover videos showcasing these tones that I was making for the Line 6 Helix after I got it. And I was a Kemper user for a while. I did some videos with that. And something really clicked with the Helix community, and folks started requesting. They're saying, I love that tone you used when you covered whatever song or whatever solo. And they said, could you show me how you did that? And I always thought, like, what do you mean show you how to do that? It's so easy. Just, go to your Helix and find a tone you like, But that was my kind of engineering, audio engineering mindset that I quickly realized, wow, the vast majority of people don't have that background and don't really understand how to get there. They just want to play and they want it to sound good right away, right? Yeah. And so, I did one video, which I think now just is approaching like 110,000 views or something. It was the first one I did. And it just got great response, and it turned into a series, which turned into another series. So a lot of Line 6 Helix content, but also that applies to a lot of other modelers. And then from there, I just started branched out and I do some educational stuff with, just teaching guitar lesson style things when I have the time to throw one of those in. And so now it's kind of diversified. I'm trying to diversify it a little bit more and cover different things. And so here we are. Line 6 took notice of that, noticed they actually have shared one of my entire Creating a Great Tone series on their support site. So that's kind of like
Nice.
drives a lot of traffic over. So I have a great relationship with them, and they're wonderful folks, really really great folks to deal with, and gone out to NAMM a bunch of times, and with those guys, and done some work out there.
Well, it sounds like somebody who I need to push for a hookup with, because I totally agree with you. I think the Helix is a really really nice piece of kit. And I mean, I'm a Kemper user. I've been using the Kemper for a very long time now. And we talked about it on the live stream I did with you. I love it, but I have like 10 sounds on it, and I just use those 10 sounds. I don't think the ability to edit sounds on it is very good. And the thing I love about that Helix, not to be honest, not even the hardware version of it, the software version of the Helix, I think is super super cool. And being able to do things with a mouse and adjust things with a mouse is just excellent. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that Line 6 stuff.
Well, the beauty of it too is, even with the hardware, you can get your HX Edit software, which basically looks like Helix native, right? And yeah, you're so right. It's so easy and so quick to just create a preset or a patch. And I have a template I use. I start there. It has all of the sort of the sweeteners I like in place already. I add an amp, make a few changes, add whatever. It's minutes, and you've got a killer tone. And the interface is fabulous. I was a Kemper user for about 3 years before I got the Helix, and loved it. Loved the sounds. Loved it. Actually, well, I don't know if we talked about that before, but the funny thing is, when I first bought it and spent all that money and got it, and I started going through the presets, I was going, what did I do? Oh my goodness, this is awful. This is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. And then, well, I'm listening to somebody else's idea of what a good tone is, or a good capture is, or profile, however I guess profiles. And then as soon as I took my amps and created my own profile, I was like, okay, there it is. This is wonderful. And I did the same thing. I had about 3 presets I just used, or profiles, I guess, that I used over and over again, and that was it. It was good.
Though, of course, I think like the thing that you take for granted, well, I'm sure you don't take it for granted, but you talk about like the production experience and being able to function in the audio engineer role. That plays such a huge role in knowing how to get a good tone, because understanding how to EQ things, understanding mic placement and things like that, impulse responses if you go in the digital route, and how all of these things impact your tone, is so unbelievably important and so neglected. I did a degree in music performance, and the subject of tone wasn't raised once in 3 years, and it just seems like, why are you the only time tone came up, and it wasn't anything to do with the school, was when I got to see 2 guys I saw make a PV Bandit sound good, which I didn't think was possible, and the most notable of those was Carver Hayen. When Carver Hayen came in, he EQ'd that amp for the room, and it sounded absolutely glorious. And I was like, I've never heard that amp sound even close to good, and it sounds incredible. How the hell have you done that? And then my personal tutor turned around and said, "Oh, that's easy to do. I can tell you how to do that." And it's like, why is that not part of the course? Being able to EQ things for the room that you're in is so unbelievably important. And I think creating content for people that focuses on that side of things, it shouldn't be niche. It's definitely not a niche subject, but it's niche in terms of the amount of people that are actually covering it, which is, of course, why I do the transcribing thing. I'm looking for to fill in a niche, and pushing that side of things, the audio production side of things, I think is really really important. So yeah, should we do the elephant in the room, the digital versus analog thing?
I'm trying to start a war, are you?
Well, ultimately, right, your channel focuses very heavily on digital patches and creating sounds and things like that. But obviously you're not anti-analog, because I can see there's a rev amp behind you, Not a cheap piece of kit, that. Is mine mine's not in view, it's directly behind me right now. So we're both fans of really nice high-end boutique amplifiers. Where do you feel this battle comes between digital and why is this battle there?
I don't even understand why there's a battle in anything to do with music at all. Whether you're talking about players' proficiency, tone, whatever else. And well, okay, so let's go back to when you were talking about Carl Verheyen playing through a PV Bandit. Probably a lot of that had to do with the fact that Carl could make anything sound good, and he's probably one of the finest players on the planet. And anybody who doesn't know Carl, you've heard him play on numerous TV shows without even knowing it, and he's just absolutely mind-blowing and inspiring and discouraging to watch all at the same time.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys. On I'd almost say on an Eric Johnson level. Like
Oh yeah.
he's a scary, scary good player, right? So I mean, and that I think has more to do with it. And we've discussed it a little bit, kind of in off air, but so many people just don't realize that. Or I guess I'll put it this way: I think more people should say, I'm going to put myself in an uncomfortable situation. I'm going to make it comfortable without having to change the gear. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Where I have a piece of gear, I've been thrown into this situation. This is not the amp I want, such as the PV Bandit, but I've got to figure this out. There's a way to make this work, right? Yeah. So we have to stop blaming the gear. That's why I don't understand the battle thing. I mean, I think that the digital modeling is now at a point, and I've done so many blind test comparisons on my channel, and it's really interesting. They always come out kind of 50-50-ish, where people go, I don't know, I think that's the real amp, or I think that's digital. And some people will say, like, oh, that's the digital one because I hear such and such a thing in it. And then, they're actually describing the real amp, right? Or vice versa. Yeah. And it really comes down to it that I think ultimately everybody's just kind of taking a stab in the dark at it. And I know that won't be a popular thing, and people don't want to admit that. Yeah. If they're not 100% accurate about what their guess is. But so I don't really understand it. I mean, to me, and I've always said this is one of the biggest things when I'm doing videos. I'm like, I'm not here to tell you how you have to work. My opinion is just another opinion, and I'll let you know it. But at the same time, if you have a different one, I'm fine with that. And you should work in whatever way makes you comfortable. If you need that tube amp behind you plan, then by all means use that. Nobody's saying you shouldn't, right? But don't necessarily think that the same thing couldn't be accomplished with an alternative method, right? There's so many ways to get through this. But so I don't really understand the battle thing. But I really think like something like the Helix, with that knowledge we were talking about before, with an audio engineering background, understanding how compression works, where it should be used, how much of it should be used, EQ, when all these albums we hear, whether it be Van Halen 1 or the Black Album by Metallica, whatever famous classic album you hear, I think there's a lot of people that think like, well, they just set up a microphone in front of a mic in front of a guitar cabinet, and they recorded that, and that was it. It was put on tape, and it's like there's so much that goes on between that, from mixing engineer to, mic placement, first of all. What signal chain did the engineer run that through? Did he add EQ as it was going on to tape? What did the mix engineer do after the fact? Where did they pan it? Did they double it? Did they triple it? Did they quadruple it? Yeah. What did the mastering engineer do? And there's so many levels. And this is, people are going, I want my guitar to sound like Van Halen 1. I want my guitar to sound like this. And you go, yeah, okay, well, that's fine. But first of all, you're not that player. And second of all, there's way more involved than just having a couple, effects blocks on the Helix or the Kemper in there to get it to sound there.
Well, add into the equation that we live in a wonderful time where you can go on YouTube and type in, Van Halen isolated guitar tracks, and you can listen to his isolated tones. And I think more often than not, I'm not going to say they're bad tones. They're not bad tones, but they're not the tones that you would imagine they are when you listen to them in isolation, because the way something sounds in a mix, the guitar tone that is actually in a mix is a different one from the one that you're likely to enjoy practicing with in your room. If you could press a button and just achieve whatever great tone from whatever record you had, and it was just coming out of your amplifier, I think most people would be surprised that, I don't actually like playing with this sound.
I would say go one step further and say it's not likely different than what you want in your room. It's absolutely is going to be, because usually those tones people go for in the room, those kind of like maybe lacking a little bit of high end or upper mids, just because, those are kind of harsh. I want that warmer, then you put it in the mix, you go, oh, it's just a big muddy mess now. Okay, let's EQ that back in, right? And that's what ends up happening. So, and that's the thing. Stuff like the Helix or the Fractal units or the Kemper. I mean, it's just so simple now to get a great bass tone, or not bass, but I mean, B-A-S-E, bass tone, to start, and then go from there with the processing. And I just recently did a video about this, because I was telling you off camera there, or off air, that actually, I don't know if you can see it right over here. I got some new analog recording gear from a really fine company I'm doing some work with now called Warm Audio, and they basically make clones of classic recording gear. So I have like a Neve 1073 pre and EQ clone from them, and I have a couple 1176 compressor clones that they make, and some really nice microphones too. A beautiful copy of a Telefunken 251. So I recently just recorded the Rev Generator 100R with this, all analog, beautiful tones. I mean, it was great. It was fabulous. But I did a video about it where I was like, well, yes, but guess what? In the mix, I still had to EQ it. I still had to add a little bit of this, a little bit of sweetener, a little, just to have it sit right. Because you do your best when you place that microphone. You go, I think this is good. This could work in the mix. Yeah. Then you get to the mix and you go, it's close, but it could be better. So I'm going to do this now, right? Sure. So this idea that and I've heard this about the Helix, a lot of people who are sort of anti-Helix, and they go, well, you have to add so much EQ and you have to do this. And he's like, well, no, you don't have to do that. You can do that.
If you want it to sound good, you should do that in the same way that you would with an amplifier. Yeah,
exactly. And and that was my point. It's really no different than the real world. You can give me, Robin Ford's Dumble, which is arguably going to be one of the more expensive amps in the world with, a real Telefunken 251 mic, or choose the mic of choice through a real Neve 1073. And I guess what? You're still going to get a tone that's not going to be miles apart. That is probably still going to need a mix engineer to tweak it subtly to get it to sit in whatever mix, it's going to sit in. So
one of the discussions that I have with Mike, my podcast co-host all the time, he's really, really, really into speaker cabinets. And he believes that's the crux of your tone. And the more we talk about it, the more I totally agree with him, because I'm listening to you talk now. And when you recorded the Rev, did you record it in that room?
I did.
So, I can hear reverb in the room just from you talking, right?
100%.
Not to say that that's a bad place to record, but it's the opposite of this room. I've got so much treatment in this room, it's dead in this room. And in order to get around that frustration of speaker cabinets and getting the right sound, I have the 2 Notes Torpedo Live here, and I can plug my an amplifier straight into that, and then use an impulse response. And I have to wonder with these people that tell you, well, tone's all about the tube. You've got to have a tube amplifier to get a good tone. Where do they stand on that? Well, is this acceptable? I'm taking my all analog tone, but then at some point it's becoming digital, because let's be realistic, even if I'm using an amp and then using a microphone in front of a cabinet, it's then going in, I'm converting it to a digital signal at some point along there, unless I'm recording to tape or something like that. You know what I mean? There's a digital conversion in there somewhere. People just scared of technology? I don't...
I think... Maybe not technology, maybe scared of change, maybe uncomfortable in a new area that they didn't grow up with and weren't, immersed in. And I mean, hey, listen, I'm the first one to say that. I'm 47 years old. I grew up playing tube amps. There was no such thing as digital modeling when I started playing. You had a great tube amp, and you loved it. And I know from experience, when the whole digital modeling came, I was a little, I don't know about this. I was one of those people, right? But at the same time, I think you have to have an open enough mind to say, okay, but let's just give it a fair shake and really remove myself from the equation and really listen. And like I said, you can take, something like this. I don't know how that's coming through for you.
It's coming through okay.
Now, if I turn my volume down on that, right? Play it with the fingers. Even if I have that.
That's a nice dynamic variance in there, yeah.
Right, you have all of those non-linearities that are still in the digital, which is what I think a lot of people talk about when they talk about the tube tone, is that the idea of touch sensitivity, and if I hit soft or roll my volume back, it's going to clean up. And this does that. And like I said, I've done numerous blind tests before, comparing the real versus, and people just can't tell the difference. Some people claim they can, but ultimately when you compile the data after the blind test, it almost always comes out uncannily 5347 or 5149 or
Those blind tests are really interesting to me though, because we tend to, when we do those sorts of things, we collate one piece of data, which is, was the person right? Did they guess A? Did they guess B? Were they right? And I think there's an additional piece of data which people should have to input when they're doing these A/B tests, which is, what level of confidence do you have in your answer? Because if people are just stabbing in the dark, like who knows or cares? You can really draw a lot of conclusions when you look at the people that are very, very confident and they're still getting it wrong. I think that would put a nail in a coffin. I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, actually, because
That's okay.
I was talking to Mike today because we recorded our podcast earlier, and I was talking about vinyl recordings. Like, how are you on vinyl? Do you like to listen to music on vinyl?
So okay, here again, I'm going to take this from a nostalgia point of view. I think is the best attack, because I love very high quality sound. I'm a big fan of that. I love pristine sounds, but at the same time, there's something that I grew up with vinyl. I mean, I literally bought 45s as a kid, not because I wanted to, because that was the way the music was out there. I couldn't buy a CD. They did not exist in,
you should have waited.
right. 1981, there was no CDs, right?
Yeah.
Like I couldn't get that. So I grew up with that. And then I went to cassettes, because guess what? I could walk down the street with my yellow Sony Sports Walkman and a set of headphones and go, this is amazing. I can leave the house and listen to music and walk around, and then you'd halfway on your walk and your batteries would die and you'd be cursing, shaking your fist at the clouds, right? But and so, and then you moved obviously into the digital realm and whatnot. So there's a real nostalgia part to it. So it's kind of funny. Maybe I'm going to say 2 years ago, I went to my parents' place, and the very turntable I grew up using that my dad purchased was in a box in his basement, and I said, Dad, I'm taking that, thank you. You don't seem to be using this. And he bugs me to this day that I stole it, and I keep he gets those obligatory comments to try to make me feel bad. But anyways, I kind of went out and I had a bunch of CDs that I traded in a local vinyl shop. They gave me a bunch of store credit, so I just, for no other reason than, boy, it's fun to sit down and listen to a piece of vinyl again. It just brings me back to being a kid. Yeah, I do it, but I don't sit there with any belief that, wow, this is so much better sounding, right? Yeah. Maybe a lot of the secondhand vinyl you're buying, it's garbage because it's just been abused for the last 35 years, right? And it's skipping and everything else. But from a nostalgia standpoint, I love it because it just brings me back to a place that I did this when I was a child. So this is wonderful. But no, beyond that, no, I don't really care.
This pleases me greatly because I went on a big rant earlier, and I'll do something similar again, right? And we'll get people engaged in the chat in this. What does everybody in the chat think about vinyl, right? I think vinyl is garbage, right? Stop with all this nonsense of telling me that the best way to listen to music is on vinyl because that's the truest way to experience it, right? You don't make the argument of let's listen to music on wax cylinders just because that's old and that's the way things were done, right? Oh, I get it. Okay, when you listen to something on vinyl, there's a warmth and there's cracks and pops and all these artifacts which are really downsides of the recording method that we get to enjoy and experience, right? And this is where I'm going to put it back to the digital thing, right? Don't tell me for a second that when you listen to a vinyl recording of somebody playing in the 70s, don't tell me that that's what the band sounded like in the room. It just wasn't.
Not. And it sounded the same as it would now if they were in that same room. That hasn't changed.
Yeah. So what we should take from that is that the band operated with the tools that they had at their disposal. Don't tell me for a fraction of a second that if you went back to like early Charlie Parker, bebop's kicking off, and you said to Charlie Parker, right, well we can put your records down on vinyl, or we've got this new digital technology and we can record everything absolutely perfectly and get it sounding exactly what it would sound like to be in a room with you. Which one of those things do you want to go for? Every single musician's going for the best option possible. So stop telling me that vinyl is the way to go, because it's not even the vision of the artist.
No, but there's another interesting part about this too. At the level we're at with technology now, I can take that pristine recording and I can send it through a tape emulator.
Yeah. I
can send it through a model of an 1176 compressor with all button mode and mix a bit of that in to get some of that, quote unquote analog warmth or whatever it is, right? So we live in this time where if you really do want that kind of lo-fi sound, we can still get it even in the digital realm, right? And I guess, you know what, honestly, if you had in a perfectly acoustically treated room with a turntable that was in pristine shape, with a stylus that was in pristine shape, with a pristine piece of vinyl that was in right off the press, beautifully done, and listen to it, you might go, wow, this is pretty impressive sound. that's going to happen that one time. And every time you play it, that's going to start getting a little bit worse, right? Whether it's the stylus on your turntable or the vinyl wearing down, and throw like I said, throw an old piece of vinyl on there, and guess what? It's all bets are off, right? We don't even know what we're going to get to.
I'm going to put a wee hashtag out for people. Maybe we can get this one trending. Hashtag bring back wax. I can't spell cylinders, apparently.
I'm hoping Eric Johnson puts Off I Am Musicom out on player piano. That would be kind of nice.
That's amazing.
That would be great.
Right, there we go. Hashtag bring back wax cylinder. I think that's the way to do things. And I don't think I've ever seen a wax cylinder.
No.
I would assume that they're probably more portable than a vinyl record as well, because low portability. Yeah, cool. So okay, so if you were to give people like I was going to say 5 things, but let's not say 5 things. Like 101, lesson 101. What is it that people need to be going away and putting their time into if they want to improve their ability to be making tones using something like a Helix or a Kemper what skills do they need?
Number one, I would say, and this might sound weird, but listen to a lot of music. And a lot of people would say, well, I do listen to a lot of music. But when I say listen to a lot of music, not just to enjoy the song. I mean, definitely do that, because that's what the end thing should always be. But take some time to listen to it with a different, from a different angle, let's say. Block everything else out mentally and listen to the drums and listen to how they decay and how maybe the compression works on a snare drum and how some snares sound softer and some are more harsh and some are...
You're way too ahead, because you can't, like, for somebody that doesn't know what compression is, they can't listen to the compression on a snare drum.
I'm going to get to that, but just, and not even listen to the compression, but listen to the difference between different recordings and go, or even come up with your own descriptive terms for yourself. That snare drum sounds harsh. That snare drum sounds soft. This one sounds big. That one sounds small. And those are all only going to mean something to the person, kind of categorizing it that way. But then once you kind of start diving into that and realizing, I think the first thing is the realization that, man, there's no right and wrong, and there's no good and bad. There's different. And there's, this is all so subjective. And that's another thing that drives me nuts in the whole YouTube world, is people come on with these definitive statements that nobody can ever say is wrong. And you say, that's cool. You should do it that way if you like it, but I prefer it this way. Nope. You're wrong, and I don't have to tell you. You've been through this enough too.
Oh man, my girlfriend has a master's degree in songwriting. She, in theory, I guess she could have a PhD in songwriting, but she knows songwriting, and her hero is Tom Waits. And she loves everything about Tom Waits, everything about him. His songwriting, the way he records his music, and I listen to all of it, and I'm like, this is garbage. It sounds like garbage. It's recorded terribly. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because unless she's holding you down and forcing you to listen to it, then that, I guess you could say maybe that.
She obviously does that too.
Yeah, well, but you know what? That's okay. But no, I think it's the realization of all the differences and how how wide a range good actually is. I'm sure we get to a point where a sound is a certain way that 99% of people on the planet would go, that's awful.
Yeah.
But even those, we've heard albums with special effects and things on. Now, having said that, so once you have that kind of realization, then I would say the 2 things to really try to educate yourself about, and this is where a lot of the videos I do come in, is what is compression? How does it work? What do all these knobs do? What is an attack control? What is a release? What is a ratio? What is it doing to the sound? And then the beautiful part about having something like a Helix or a Kemper or a Fractal Axe Effects or whatever, or even Amplitude software or guitar or whatever. I mean, you can put that compressor in. And the really funny thing I find is people have this in front of them, and they'll ask me a question. Well, what happens if I do this? And I think sometimes I just want to go, well, just try it. Like, it's one mouse click. Just try it. And if you don't like it, just go back to what you had before. But in the same time, educate yourself what that change that you did made. So put a compressor on and change the attack time from 1 millisecond to 100 milliseconds, and then really listen to it after, whether you watch one of my videos or read something else in the net to describe to you what that control does. Go and try it. Don't be afraid of it. And I think a lot of times people are just afraid because it is overwhelming and it's intimidating to dive into that. But I would say learn about compression, and learn about EQ. I mean, I've sat in on mastering sessions for my own albums and other people's albums with very high-end, amazing mastering engineers. And that's just fascinating to watch. And you go, what are they using? Well, they're basically using compression. They're using EQ. That's the two, like 90% of what they're doing is that, right? And you go, I'd ask one of my good friend Phil Dimitro from Toronto, who's mastered a bunch of stuff for me. He's fabulous. He works at a place called Lacquer Channel. And Lacquer Channel mastered Rush's 2112. This goes way back. They've done some big albums. And I look at his compressor. I'm like, what? He says, oh, I'm not even moving the needle on that. Like, there's no actual compression happening. I'm just running it through the circuit of that compressor because it slightly warms the sound up. And then I have half a dB boosted at 10K on the shelf EQ. And I'm like, really? And then he goes, well, listen, now he bypassed. And I'm like, it's so subtle, but yeah, there's a difference. And that's what his job is to just give it that last little bit of polish. But, you have to understand what those things do. So yeah, definitely don't be afraid to just dive in, get an education on EQ and compression, because those two tools can just do wonders. One of the big things I've known for in the Helix is I put they have something in it called the LA Studio Comp, which is basically the model of the LA2A Teletronics LA2A studio compressor, tube compressor. And I always put that at the end of the signal chain. But everybody seems to go, oh, I'd get the comments all the time. You have compression after your reverb and your delay. You can't do that. That's wrong. And I've literally answered this question 4,000 times. I go, first thing that's wrong with that is that you think that just putting a compressor is always equal. There's ways to use a compressor that's very bad, that you're going to do more damage. And there's ways where you almost won't even notice that it's there. So I agree, if you put a very heavy compression after reverb and delay, you're going to mess with your reverb and delays. Whether that's what you want or not, that's going to be ultimately up to you. But there's also ways to put it on where you wouldn't even notice a difference on it. But what it did is just give a little bit of warmth to the sound. And there you have it, right? So it's just this funny thing that a lot of people talk as if they're coming from a place of authority, but they really have never even used these things themselves. They've just read somewhere on the internet that you're not supposed to put it there, so therefore that's the gospel now. And
so, I mean, and sometimes using things in ways that they aren't intended to be used results in wonderful results, like the
like guitar distortion, you mean? Like ripping
there's a good one. I was going to go for something like using an Echoplex, but actually distortion is the best example that you could possibly give.
Right.
I'm going to throw an additional thing in there. Well, we'll see if you agree with me on this. So obviously you and I, working professionals, we've been in the industry a very long time. I'm sounding more and more blocked up as we go. I'm ill. I apologise for this, everybody. We've been working a long time, right? And we've collected vast amounts of gear. We have lots of software, lots of hardware, and I'm lucky when it comes to mixing things. When it comes to getting sounds, if I'm going to go for an EQ, I'm going to use my FabFilter EQs or the FabFilter compressor, right? And I see a lot of people saying online, can anybody suggest a cost-effective alternative to the FabFilter stuff? And it's like, yes, whatever comes stock in your door, it's fine. It will do the job. You can learn how to EQ with whatever EQ is in your door. You can learn how compression works with whatever compressor is in your door. You will get good sounds out of them if you learn how to use them, because people made great sounding records with a lot less.
I couldn't agree more. And honestly, if I was told I had to make a great record I use Cubase Pro with nothing but, never mind the plugins, but nothing but just the channel strip that comes up on each channel without you wanting it to, whether you turn it on or not, on or off or not. You have an EQ, you have a compressor, you have a gate. If somebody can't make a great album with just that, then you need to go back and learn how to use the equipment first, and then worry about whether you're using a Fab filter or a Neve clone or anything else. Because let's be honest, I'll tell you, with a lot of things, like you take something like these Neve clone preamps, you can do a lot more damage with a character type preamp like this than just a clean one. Because if you crank the input gain too much, you're actually getting distortion on there that maybe you don't want. If I was recording a grand piano and I crank the input gain on the Neve preamps, I'm probably gonna get things I don't want there, right? So if you don't understand that and you just happen to do that, you've ruined your recording. There's no going back on that. That's the way it's printed to tape. So, sometimes using the stuff that is just more straight ahead, clean, not designed to add any character is maybe a bit of a safety net and a better place to start, instead of something like a Fab filter or, something that is maybe cloning classic vintage gear that was designed to add more character to the sound, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you said adding so much gain there, you end up with distortion and you're viewing things. Unless that's your artistic vision, unless that's your vision,
100%. Yeah. But
when the
you should know that that's what's going to happen and
yeah,
that you're doing it for a purpose rather than just whoops.
yeah.
Like
But,
I didn't know that was going to happen if I turned that.
my missus went out of her way when she recorded her last album to find a broken microphone to record her vocals with, because that was, and I'm like, but why? And she's like, Tom Waits did it on something, and I liked the way it sounded, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a really, really noisy, crackly vocal performance, because that just fit the vibe of what the songs were all about. And I'm like, okay, you maniac.
How did it turn out?
It turns out great.
And there you go, right? So that's, but again, that was done very deliberately.
Yeah.
That wasn't done like, well, I didn't know I was using a broken microphone, and that's the difference, right? Is having that knowledge that, hey, wait, that's not the right preamp for this, because I'm actually maybe in danger of, even if maybe I just have a bad day and later on I listen to something on headphones and go, oh no, we just spent 8 hours recording and there's like, I pushed that preamp a little too hard. I'd rather have a preamp that's just not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's not what I want in this case, right?
Sure.
But again, that requires knowledge and experience, and which is what people should go and why they should maybe just go to their DAW and stay very simple at first, and you don't need anything special.
Okay, let's move on to the meat, or well, it's not really the meat, but the interesting stuff, because we're guitar players and we like to talk about guitars. And of course, you talk about like trying to diversify with the content that you're putting up on YouTube. I think you're at 7 or 8 videos now of your What Were They Thinking series.
Yes. I haven't had time in the last couple of weeks. I was really enjoying doing it. I got to get back to it hopefully this week.
Yeah. I kind of teased you a little bit about it when we did our live stream, because when I initially saw What Were They Thinking with Brent Mason, I didn't read it as, so what was this player thinking about when they recorded this part? I read it as, what were they thinking?
Yeah. What the hell was Brent Mason thinking? Man, that guy's just no good at all.
This is a shitty solo. It's like, not that. It's
said
not
nobody
that
ever about Brent Mason.
Yeah. So yeah, of course we are guitar players. So let's talk gear. Now, obviously people can see that you've had that Vigier in front of you. Why not use an opportunity to plug friends? You're a big Vigier guy now, right?
Yeah, I am. So I've gone through working with a couple different guitar companies. I was with the really great folks at Godin, which is a Canadian company.
Love them.
Wonderful people. And wonderful instruments. Man, I still have one of their Tellys, one of their new Telly style guitars that they put out a couple of years back. They sent me one of those. It's wonderful, and just really wonderful folks. And I was with Yamaha for a while, which was, kind of with the Line 6 thing. But last NAMM, was that 2020? I guess it would have been. Yeah, that would have been the last one.
I guess there was one.
What is time mean? It was right before the world shut down, basically. Yeah. The funny thing is, I was walking by the Vigier booth, and, I was aware of Vigier for years, like as we all were, no Bumblefoot using them, and Guthrie was using the fretless on, here and there, and I just saw they had a Line 6 Helix on the floor, and I just popped in. And I was like, oh, what are you guys doing with the Line 6 Helix? And they were working on, which is still coming out, I think. They've got a little add-on to their guitar, so it's going to be like a Bluetooth thing. It's kind of cool. I don't know if should even be talking about that at this point, but they were showing it at the show, so I don't think it's a secret.
Sure.
But it just hasn't hit the street yet. But anyways, they were using the Helix to show how they could control it from the guitar, which was kind of a cool thing. So we had this big conversation. I tried the fretless, and so I ended up, I was talking to DJ, right?
Yeah.
DJ Scully, wonderful fella. And we just started chatting, and the more I played the guitar, I was like, man, these are really cool. And I looked into them more and how they're doing, the no truss rod. I'm like, man, that's kind of cool. I just liked a lot of their vision about what they were doing, and we just kind of decided, talking over email, that maybe we could do some work together, and here I am now. So I think I have 5 of them over here now. So it's and I'm real happy with them. I just love them, man. It's can't really say anything bad about them. So I'm pretty happy.
You have the fretless, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I have this guy right here.
Yeah, I miss my fretless. Fretless is fun.
It is nice. I find I use it more after I did my initial Attitude song cover with it, where I kind of threw myself into the flames within a few days of getting it, just to sort of, the baptism by fire type of thing. Now I find I use it on sessions a lot, where I just do these little, maybe, pulled back sweetener things with, atmospheric type things. And it's just it's such a wonderful tool to have as that extra paintbrush, and to just grab it and throw it in when needed. But a wonderful instrument, lots of fun to play.
Sure, I want to reach over and grab mine, but it's all the way over there. It's miles away. It's on another wall. I only have the one now, and it's my red one, which is an Excalibur, which of course is the greatest name for any guitar.
Of course.
I have an Excalibur Ultra, which is glorious, and it has a fixed bridge on it because I'm a fixed bridge guy. I don't even think they make the Excalibur Ultra with a fixed bridge anymore, which seems strange to me, but such is life. And there's something really magic about that guitar, really, really magic about that guitar. And nothing has topped it. I own a lot of guitars, a lot of really nice guitars, but in my mind, I just think of that thing, and I'm like, ooh.
Me, this one here is the magic one. It's the Expert. It's their Strat style.
Sure.
And I don't know what it is, because I have a couple Excaliburs, but the Expert and I think it just comes back. I really like Strats. I know you love Tellys, and I kind of.
Nah, man, I've changed my mind. I got I got an Eric Johnson. I got the 54 Virginia, and I played that for a couple of days, and I was like, damn, I've grown up. Strats are good.
No way.
I can play it now because I'm not shredding all the time, so the volume knob doesn't bother me, and I'm like,
yes.
Every pickup position just has like a very different sound, and they all sound fantastic. Love them. I'm already looking for another Strat.
It's awesome. I honestly, if I had to have one guitar to play just about any gig, regardless of style, I'd even figure out how to play metal on it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I just love the tones of it. And this is another one I really like too, is the GV wood. This is the hollow version though.
Right.
And this has pickups by a company called Amber out of Germany. I'd never really heard of them before, but they're fabulous. They're really, really, really cool. But that's a great guitar too. Although again, as much as I love this guitar, it sounds great. I'm just like a longer scale length guy. I like the 25.5, right? It just feels better to me.
That's the thing to point out with the Vigiers though, right? Because they're not 25.5.
No, but comparing the GV Wood to the Expert, it's more within that range. Yeah, they're 20.
They're 25.6.
That's what it is, yeah.
Because they don't do it in inches, they do it in millimeters. So they're I think 650 millimeters or something like that. And it works out. Maybe that's the reason I really, really, really dig them, because you've got a tenth of an inch extra scale length. So I put a set of 10s on there, and they feel a tiny bit heavier. They've just got a little bit more tension to them. Absolutely, totally.
I have 10s on all of these right now, but I was just talking to DJ, I think a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to get him to send me a nut for 11s, cut for 11s on the GV Wood, because that's the gear feel. Wood, yeah. I just want to go with, I think it's going to be, I find sometimes it's just a little too slinky, right? And I think that's what even Les Pauls, I pick up Les Pauls, I'm like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like home to me, I can play it, it's fine, right? But
every Les Paul I play, the strings feel like rubber bands. So
that's exactly it. So I'm thinking maybe the 11s might kind of put me in that area where I can go, no, okay, this is cool now. It's all right. We'll see.
I tend to want to go the other way and shift down to 9s. I find that I love the feel of 10s, but as I've grown, as I've matured, I find that I like the sound of 9s. I think there's a bite, there's a Van Halen-ness to them. There's a lot high end.
I haven't matured yet, so maybe that's why I'm not there. But didn't Rick Beato do a video on that recently, where he was, I don't even know if I saw it, but I heard a bunch of rumblings about it. He talked about moving down to 9s and how that, right? Is that, am I mistaken on that? Or?
I didn't. I know that he's done a bunch of videos on strings. He certainly did a video where he was saying string gauge doesn't matter, and maybe it doesn't impact your tone, which is nonsense. It is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, it's going to impact just the way you attack things and the touch sensitivity of everything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I've got a set of 9s. I'm going to tune them down to B, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, I'm sure they'll sound fantastic. No, it's just not the case. Actually, on my Vigier 7 string, I had. I don't like slack strings, and I don't really play any extended range stuff, because I don't like I don't like the tuning issues that you get with a slacker string. So I want a tight string. So I had was it 72s maybe for a low B string, which is way too big, way too big. And it caused string inharmonicity problems where the string stopped vibrating like a string, and it started to vibrate more like a cylinder, which fucks with the overtones. It fucks with the harmonics on them, and it never sounded good. I just couldn't make a 72 sound good, understandably so. So again, Rick, got to tell you, buddy, string gauge is kind of important, and you should, yeah. But
somebody in the comments says no. His conclusion was definitely differences, but maybe not the ones people think. Okay, fair enough. I can't really comment because I don't think I actually watched the video, so I can't.
Yeah, I've stopped watching Rick's videos because I don't have the energy to join the hip train that everyone's on. You know what I mean? Like, we get it. You're angry about we get it, Rick. You're angry about something that the record labels and publishers did. You're angry that they have rightfully pointed out that you've used their music when you don't have a right to. Get it, you're angry about that, but you know, you knew this was coming. What do you expect? And you're not going to fight illegally either, are you? So what are you whinging for?
No, you're definitely not going to. But yeah, that's a whole other can of worms that could be opened up there. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to our last thing to talk about, which is what does the future hold for you then? So what's your plans for 2021? We're still, it's 2021. 2020, let's say 2022.
2022, yeah. That's a good question. I try not to think that far ahead. No, I really would love to. I have 7 instrumental solo albums out that I think the first one I released was in 2005. I think so. If memory serves me correctly. I should probably know that, but I don't off the top of my head. But yeah, so I have those out, and I haven't really done a lot of composing. I think the YouTube channel it was going well. So I thought, why am I going to compose music that 4 people will stream on Spotify when I can actually do something here that people are really following and enjoying and build this up. But there's a certain itch I get that probably on a daily basis where I really want to write something. And I've been exceptionally fortunate to make some great connections and really good friendships with some really amazing musicians who are always happy to play on my stuff. So, Marco Miniman has become a dear friend over the last probably 12 years. He played on my second album. I just hired him as a session guy. And we chatted a lot. We hit it off. And then, he'd invite me out when he was touring with Joe Satriani and in Toronto, he'd invite me out and go hang with the band. And we just became really close friends. So Marco's always been super kind. He's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Just one of the most genuinely and one of the most insanely talented people on the planet, from guitar to piano to drum. Like it's I got to tell this story. I always laugh with him. He on one, so after doing a bunch of albums with him, I would send him, here's this new song I'm working on. Do you mind doing drums? And Mark was a busy guy. He's either out on the road or he's doing other sessions or he's writing his own music or he's got lots on his plate. So I always just do just whenever you have a chance, like there's seriously no rush. I can't state that enough. I don't want you to inconvenience yourself in any way to get to my stuff. You make everything else a priority. And when I get it back, I get it back. So I wrote this one tune that I was actually trying to write it in a very complex progressive manner, lots of time signature changes all over the map, right? At this point, I was the only person to ever hear this song because I just finished writing it, right? I sent it his way and he's like, yeah, no worries. I can get to that. I'll keep you posted. I got, I got through some other sessions and whatever. So I emailed it off to him, but I think, I don't know exactly what it was, the evening sometimes. Let's say it was 7:00. And because the message I sent him said 7:00. At 7:18, I got an email back with a rough mix of the song completed. And what is this? I was looked at it and going, what did he send me here? And I put it on, go into the studio, and he just finished the song. I was kind of staring, looking, going, how did he?
Time vortex.
Right, yeah, he had to download the stems, load them into Cubase, Now, granted, his mic is set up, his drums are set up, mic'd and ready to go. He's got his templates and everything. So that's, and he had to listen to it at least once.
Yeah.
He wasn't predicting what the song was, I don't think. I don't think he has that. But, and then he had to track it at least once. So the song was, I think, 4 minutes and plus.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of doing the math. I'm like, you listened to this once and you tracked it once and then you sent it to me. And this was not like, Brown Eyed Girl. This was common, and it didn't sound just good. It sounded like he had been playing this song his whole life.
Yeah.
And it's always one of these. I always bug him. Well, you're not even from this planet, man. It's just insane. But anyways, that was a big tangent away from the original question. But no, so it's nice to have. I almost got. I think I'm a bit spoiled because anytime I do write music, and the other interesting thing is you write very differently, knowing that you can have somebody like him playing on it, because. Sure. You go, if I do this, who's going to be able to kind of, if I want to do something really crazy and really over the top difficult, it doesn't matter with him. You're going to send it to him and he's going to do it and it's going to be really good, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice. I did a lot of work with Tony Levin too. I was really fortunate to make a connection with him, and Tony's another just wonderful human being, wonderful to work with. So I did a bunch of stuff with him and Marco playing. He plays Chapman stick on some material, which is very cool. And I worked with a bunch of guys. Chad Wackerman I've done some stuff with, and Brian Beller from the Aristocrats, and just a lot of these folks. Brett Garsed played a solo on one of my albums, along with Alex Makachek as well. So just great guitar players, all wonderful folks. So. Long story short, I get this itch to do another album, but it's so much work and so many resources go into it for the only
Vanity.
Right. For the only return of self-satisfaction, I guess would be the way to put it, which is important. I think it's
sure.
maybe it has to be done, but it's a frustrating thing now because, the idea of
masturbation's quicker and cheaper though.
Exactly. But it's I don't know. It's almost something in me that says I have to get some music out.
I do know what you mean. I had vowed to never put an album out, but just because of the financial climate of just the state of the industry,
100%.
The declining record sales. And I only put my album out in my 6 year. I've put 2 albums out 6 years ago, and it wasn't a smart financial decision. Fortunately, didn't lose money thanks to amazing people like Richard Henry, who I see in the chat. Fortunately, didn't lose money, but that's because I did everything on a shoestring budget. I did it for no reason other than, and it's what you said there, right? It's an itch. I can't describe it. I had to do it. It just needed to be done. I woke up one day and was like, I really need to make something. I need to make an album and do something. We've had a question just come in here, which is, do albums make sense these days?
As far as you mean making a production, not
versus
an actual vinyl album?
Doing
or a physical? Are you talking physical versus digital?
I think he's talking, well, when I interpret a question like that, because I'm seeing a lot of guys release singles, collections of singles, over doing the more traditional, here's a collection of 11 songs. Releasing a single and then 2 months later releasing another single and so on and so forth. What do you think? Do albums make sense these days?
So my what was likely an incorrect take on that, again because of nostalgia reasons, I grew up with albums, and when I pull up Spotify and I see that somebody just released something and I go there and it's just a single, my heart always sinks a little bit, right? And I go, oh good, a single, I'll listen to that in 3.5 minutes and then now I got to wait for your next single, So and again, that's just me being, going back to childhood where I came home with my, whether it was a cassette or album, and I could dig into this and listen to it multiple times over a decent decent amount of time. But yeah, I did do a couple singles, and it seems to be the way to go. So I think maybe to scratch that itch, it does make a lot more sense. A lot less investment of time, a lot less investment of resources and the financial resources, and you can get it out there. And maybe it's easier to build. You can focus all of your
attention on the one thing rather than having an album which inevitably still has a lead single on it, the song you used to promote the album, and then you've got to try and convince people to go and check out these other 10 tracks.
What if I just do a single that's like 46 minutes long? Would that
How very
I don't know.
I almost said how very Dream Theater of you there, like Dream Theater are the only prog band. Like how embarrassing. But you would wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, or if some people believe that to be the case. What was I going to say? Something was in my mind, and then I got distracted by the Dream Theater thing. Singles, has it just completely gone? Maybe. Oh yeah. So I think you talk about nostalgia and how you used to do things. I'm the same. I've never changed. I only ever listen to an album. I have no interest in making a playlist on Spotify. No, thank you. My girlfriend exclusively listens to playlists, or if she does put an album on, if I say put this album on, she has it on shuffle. She has albums on shuffle. I'm like, what are you doing, you maniac? This album was carefully, they didn't accidentally. You're a songwriter. Like when you put an album out, you don't just pick all your songs and shuffle them together and see what comes out. You very carefully design the track listing so it has its ebbs and flows. But this is one of those things where I just kind of accept that I've lost the battle on this one, and society has changed, and people do want to consume singles. So if a band releases a new single, great, I can throw it in one of my favourite playlists. Versus a band releasing an album, I don't know. Does the average young person today have the attention span to go, okay, well, here's a 46-minute album. I'm going to listen to it all and find which songs I want to put on my playlist.
I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. Were you ever like me where you wanted to listen to an album and you knew you didn't have enough time to get through the whole thing, so you just didn't listen to it at that point and came back and only listened to it when you knew you had the time to finish it? I didn't want to get to the end of Moving Pictures and miss vital signs. I needed to hear that, or I would have felt wrong all day. You know what I mean? And I would have had to come back and start over again. So I'm just going to put that off until I have the time to dedicate to it.
Especially as I grew up listening to so much progressive music and concept albums. Like, you can't give up on a concept album halfway through, though, to be fair, the truest of prog fans will listen to a concept album on shuffle because they're that progressive. Who needs a story to be presented in order? Am I right? So we get another comment here says, I prefer albums from an artistic sense, but I can understand the business part of it with singles. So, yeah.
I kind of agree with that. It is, and like you said, it is what it is. We can't fight what's happening. It's bigger than us, and our nostalgia will take a far backseat to
making smart business decisions and looking at where the industry has found itself, let's say, rather than where we think it should be.
Or has been guided on purpose. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
Is that like an Illuminati thing?
Sometimes it all just seems kind of guided. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I did. The average consumer, short attention spans. I generally speaking.
But again, have we been guided to have short attention spans?
Probably.
Probably.
But prior to anything that could be considered particularly nefarious, I could totally get on board with the idea of don't bore us, get to the chorus in songwriting, and I am a big fan of that. I don't want to. Well, I like prog obviously, but when I'm working with Melissa on songs and she's 2 minutes into a song and there's not been a chorus yet, I'm like, come on. Why is the first verse so damn long? You've lost people's attention by this point. Like, people have incredibly short attention spans. I say that. We've been sat here talking for an hour and people are still listening to us. So
yeah, that's right. But that's not even a new thing. I mean, that was back in the 80s on radio. I mean, it was still the same thing. If you weren't at the chorus relatively quick, you weren't getting on the radio, and then they'd always cut the guitar solo out anyways, because who wants to hear that? I always used to drive me nuts as a kid when Sultans of Swing would come on, and I was like on the radio driving with my parents. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot wait to hear, whatever he's doing at the end there. And then all of a sudden they would just like fade out right before that riff started. And I'm like, this is just wrong. You should not be able to play Sultans of Swing without the end solo.
Yeah, I believe the correct, the official term for that is Freebird syndrome.
Yes, exactly. But let's be honest, the last part of Sultans of Swing is not that long. It's like an extra 12 seconds of hearing him play through his riff or whatever, his lick, and it's like, would it have killed you just to leave that in? It really is what makes a song.
Somebody's pointed out that this conversation reminds them of the analysis video of Tiny Dancer. Tiny Dancer is an example of a song where the chorus comes in way later than you would expect it to, but it is a nice payoff when it gets there. So,
yes.
Rules are meant for breaking.
What did Elton John know, though?
Yeah, well, he's an interesting one. What did he know? Not that much, because he needed a lyricist.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
The musical side he had down though. Yes.
yeah, when you take somebody else's stories, lyrics, and chop them up to fit your musical vision, sometimes the story gets lost.
Yeah.
And yeah, oh, there's
Was
a
it
lot of
that?
moments in Elton's music where I'm like, lyrically, that is nonsense. Why is that there? I can't get on board with that.
That was an interesting musical relationship for sure.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
I was a sculptor, but then again, no. Why?
What is this?
If I was this thing, I'll pretend I actually didn't just say this thing. Like,
Yeah.
why not? If I were a sculptor, just a face you don't know. That works. That works
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
But if
Yeah.
I were a sculptor, but then again, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terrible lyric.
It's true. Yeah.
What do I know though? I've not made that level of success.
No. Can't argue with the success. That's for sure.
So where can people go and check out more of what it is that you're doing? YouTube and
So I have my YouTube. You said you had the link for YouTube up, I guess,
yeah, that's
already.
in the description.
I also have my website where I have a web shop up and other pertinent things, such as all the gear I use. And, I try to keep it fairly up to date. Not that people do websites as much anymore, but I like to have it there. I have a web store there that I have some presets available for Amplitude 5, the IK multimedia software as well. I have some impulse responses that I just recently made with some of the new gear I did.
Nice.
I shot some Rev. I'll have to send those to you if you want to check them out.
Yeah.
Rev 212 cab with vintage 30s, Rev 112 with the Warehouse ET90 speaker. So I shot those with some of these new mics I got. Actually, I even used the new SM7 that we were talking about. They turned out really good. I was really happy with them. So that's all up on my website. It's just www.sadites.com, SADITES, like my last name.com. So that's there. My YouTube channel. I have my other social media sites. I have, the obligatory Facebook music page, which I copy and paste everything that I post to my normal one too, because there's some followers there, and and I have my normal Facebook page, which is reaching the point of whatever. Do they still have an upper limit on the number of friends you can have on Facebook? Is it still 5,000? Yeah. So I think I'm somewhere up close to that. I don't know, but don't even know anybody on there. It used to be a personal thing. It no longer is, thus no pictures of my son and whatnot are on there. And so I have that. Again, I have a Instagram music page, which I probably neglect. I just find it, YouTube's where I'm kind of focused on, and I find that's what I do. And it's funny. So you can follow me on those things, but
I'm trying to do a little bit more focus on Instagram, actually, but over Facebook, because, the idea of shadow banning on Facebook is not a new concept. Much like you, my personal page on Facebook became a business page because it had to use it for promoting stuff, because, the business pages are worthless unless you're paying them money to promote posts, and even then, you don't reach anyone. But that 5,000 friend limit that's a killer. Whereas there's no, you can be followed by 100,000 people on Instagram. So
But is that not to just push people over to the business side of things where you're going to be buying ads? I'm guessing that's their.
Yeah, I want to push them over to YouTube, because YouTube's the most important thing in the world to me. I'm going to keep doing this until I reach that golden 100K.
Yes.
And I'm going to get my plaque, and then I'm going to get in the bath, and I'm going to have somebody drop a toaster in there with me and say, "That's me.
That's
I'm
it.
done." Fantastic.
It was a good run.
Yeah, it's unfortunately I'll be 120 when that day comes.
Right.
So
something might get you before the toaster, but anyways,
someone will get me before the toaster.
Or someone,
yeah.
Possibly.
Here's a nice closing comment. Songs are like jokes. The longer you wait for the payoff, the better it has to be.
True.
I get on board with that.
I get that too. That's awesome.
Jason, thank you so much for your time today. Do you have any closing messages for these lovely people?
No, just go out and stop arguing about whether digital and analog's better, and just play some music, for God's sakes.
Michael has pointed out that I could have a Kemper toaster thrown in there.
I don't know if that would be as deadly in the water, but
no. Well, I have the powered version. I mean, that doesn't mean it inherently has electricity in it, I guess.
No, but yeah. Well, you get to enjoy your 100K button a little longer that way. So, and you'll have to buy a new camper. But anyways. Anyway, thanks so much.
Used to be on the other side. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say thank you so much for having me, Levi. That was really, really awesome. Always enjoy chatting.
Very welcome. Right, I'm just gonna run my credits as always. You wonderful people that keep this channel going. Even listen to me. Can't speak with my blocked sinuses. Thank you so much for all your love, kindness, and support, guys. It really does help. Especially, having like a 12-day period where I had COVID and couldn't do anything. I didn't go bankrupt, which was nice. So thank you for your support. It means a lot. And of course, if you would like to, you can head on over to Amazon, check out one of my books. You can see some of my books on screen now. You can even see my latest book, Hybrid Picking Guitar Technique. Go and check out a copy of that. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Please do go and check out Jason's YouTube channel. You will enjoy his content. He's a nice, friendly guy. He's much more friendly than I am, actually. So, though, to be fair, that's not all that hard. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you for another stream soon. Goodbye. And we're gone.
We're gone.